Hello and welcome to Geomaths. Today we are going to talk about sets, but before we do that, we have to go back to what real numbers are, and then it will help us understand sets the more. So we already learned that real numbers are divided into two, that is the rational numbers and then the irrational numbers. Under the rational numbers, we learned about integers, which are positive and negative whole numbers, and then whole numbers, which are also numbers starting from 0. So we can clearly see that whole numbers belong to the set of integers, or they are subset of integers. Natural numbers are numbers that start from 1 upwards. They also fall under whole numbers, or they are subset of what? Whole numbers. Now on the other side is the irrational numbers, one of which is the set. Okay, so irrational numbers are actually real numbers whose decimals never ends. If you take the square root of 2, you realize that you are going to get a number that keeps going on and on and on and on. If you take so 1 over 3, though it is having a decimal which is not ending, it is having a repeating decimal. This is following 3, 3, 3, 3 on and on and on. But when you take 22 over 7, you realize that the decimals are non-repeating. They are not repeating, and they are also unending. So this 22 over 7's result is giving us an irrational number. So what are sets? A set is not basically a square root of a number, because this is a square root of 4, but it is not a set. So sets are root of numbers that give us irrational numbers. That means that when I take the square root of 2, it is going to give us this result, which is going to give us what? An irrational number. So square root of 2 is a set. In the same way, when you take the square root of 5, it's going to give you an irrational number. But when you take the square root of 9, square root of 9 is going to give us 3. So though it is having the radical sign or the square root sign, because the result is giving us is a rational number, we can say the square root of 9 is a set. Okay, now let's go quickly to the properties of sets. The first property of set is saying that if you have the square root of a number which is also being squared, then we can say that the square root of a is multiplying itself, and in indices any number squared is equal to that number raised to the power of half. So a raised to the power half times a raised to the power half. And you also learned in indices that if the bases are the same, you add the exponent. So you take one of the bases, half plus half gives us what? So it means that the square root of a number that is being squared gives you back the number under the square root, which is a. For instance, if you have the square root of 5, which is being squared, you are going to get the square root of 5 times the square root of 5. It is also the same as 5 raised to the power half times 5 raised to the power half, which is also equal to 5 raised to the power half plus half gives us 1, which is also equal to 5. That means that the square of the square root of a number, the square root and the square cancels out, leaving with the number under the square root. That's the first property we should know about sets. The second thing to note about sets is the fact that if you multiply a number by a set, it happens that you can just, instead of writing the m times square root of n, we can simply write it as m multiplying square root of n. So if we have 2 times square root of 3, we are going to get 2 root 3. As simple as that. Moving on. If you also happen to have a square root of a number multiplying another number, what we can do is that we can interchange the position. So multiplication is commutative. So square root of b times c is the same as c multiplying square root of b. So we can also come and write it, and it's looking just like the formula 2. So if you have the square root of 3 times 2, we can write it as 2 times the square root of 3, which gives us 2 root 3. Now let's go to the fourth one. If you are multiplying a square root of a number by the square root of another number, it is just you take the number under the square root and the number under the other square root, and you put it under a bigger square root, and then you multiply the 2. So it means that the square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is going to give us a bigger square root, multiply the numbers under the square root. So 3 times 2, which gives us the square root of what? 6. Now let's go to the fifth property under set. We are saying that if you have a number in front of the square root and then it's multiplying another number in front of another square root, what you do is you multiply the numbers in front of the square root, then you go back to the formula 4 or the property 4 and you do likewise. So if you have 2 root 3 times 3 root 5, you are going to multiply the 2 by the 3, so 2 times 3. Then you are going to write a bigger square root and then 3 times the 5. That is the numbers under the square root to multiply each other. So you're going to get a 6 root square root of 3 times 5 is what? 15. Okay, now the last one, we are saying that if you have the square root of a number over the square root of another number, then you can take a bigger square root and put the number up divided by the number down. In that case, if you have, let's make it the square root of 2 over the square root of 3, it is going to give you the square root of 2 over 3, a bigger square root, then the number under the numerator, square root over the number under the denominator square root. That's basically about sets. Thank you.